Hello and welcome back to another video with me, Crispy. As you may be aware, over the past few weeks, with the little time I get to play games, I have been investing a lot of hours into Squad 44. So I thought that it would be fitting that I did a comparison video between Hell Let Loose and Squad 44 to talk about all the things that I like about each game versus the things that I don't, as well as discuss not only the vast differences of the two games, but some of the things that they both have in common as well. Now, first things first, it is important to note that I am comparing these two games on different platforms. Hell Let Loose I have only played on console, whereas Squad 44 has been on PC. So my comments in relation to each of these games is based off of what I have personally experienced. I can't speak for Hell Let Loose on PC as I just simply haven't played it, and obviously Squad 44 doesn't exist on console. Once again, I am by no means an expert with either game. I like to consider myself just an average, normal bloke, give or take a few things, who tries the game as much as possible whilst juggling my real life, as well as making videos in my spare time. So if there's something I miss or I get wrong, I will apologise now. Don't hate me for it in the comments. Oh, I got an OP. What a shot. I thought about how to try and structure this video and decided I'll start by discussing just general differences between the two games before moving on to gameplay differences, and then finishing off with a summary and asking the vital question as to which game sounds the best when getting a headshot. So we'll start with the general differences and look at the game modes that each game has to offer. Starting with Hell Let Loose, we have 3 game modes. The first game mode and most popular being Warfare, which is where 2 teams control equal share of the map whilst contesting over the middle point. Victory is achieved by holding the most amount of points at the end of the 90-minute timer or capturing all 5 objectives. This game mode tends to be the chosen for clan wars. The second mode we have is Offensive. This is where one team, the defending team, controls the entire map and have a series of objectives to defend. The attacking team achieve victory by capturing all 5 points. If the defensive team can hold out for 30 minutes on any one objective, then they win. Only the defending team can see where the locked points are. The attacking team can only see the unlocked objective. The third game mode and most recent to Hell Let Loose is Skirmish. This is a contest over the middle point only. It's a far quicker game than your typical Warfare or Offensive mode, and essentially the team that controls the middle sector at the end of the timer wins. Moving on to Squad, and the first game mode we have and most common is Offensive. Exactly the same as Hell Let Loose Offensive mode with the same rules, the only difference being that Squad uses a ticket system, meaning that every death or every vehicle lost depletes the overall amount of tickets. If the attacking team loses all their tickets, then the defending team win. Personally, I quite like the ticket system as I think it makes you think twice about whether you should push or not. It also brings the medic role as quite an important role and gives it some purpose, something that has become quite redundant in Hell Let Loose. Next up is Random, Advanced and Secure. This mode has 2 teams starting from their HQ with only their first objective visible. They must capture it before the next one is revealed and try to beat the enemy team in securing as many objectives as they can. Teams need to try to predict and position themselves as to where the next objective may be, whilst balancing the art of defense on already capped points. A team wins by depleting the enemy team of tickets or holding more objectives at the end of the timer. The third game mode is called Invasion and is probably my most favourite mode. It combines defending and attacking objectives whilst throwing in objective-based tasks and missions which need to be completed before securing the capture point. This could be destroying vehicles, weapons, supplies or barricades whilst the defending team try to stop you. The defending team wins by depleting enemy tickets or controlling the map at the end of the timer, whilst the attackers win by completing all objectives and securing all capture points. There are some other game modes for Squad 44 as well, which include Skirmish, Armoured and Supremacy. Supremacy involves capturing the flags and sort of racing to objectives as they appear. I'm not too sure what the other 2 modes involve. To be quite honest with you, I haven't had enough time in game to experience those game modes, but they do have a lot more game modes than Hell Let Loose currently.
Get an OP, attack the garrisons.
Moving on, I do want to discuss the current playable factions in both games and compare the two. In Hell Let Loose, we currently have the Germans, US, Soviets and British, whilst in Squad 44 we can play from 7 factions. We've got the Germans, the US, the British, the Polish, the Anzacs, Australia and New Zealand, which are 1 faction, the French army and the Greek army as well. I know that there are currently plans to bring in the Soviet forces and the Japanese to Squad 44. There were also rumours that we would get the Finnish forces in Hell Let Loose as well, which will mean that we have an additional Axis power, something that is not currently available in either game. So hopefully looking forward to that coming true. and having some more factions to play off in both games. When it comes to comparing the two games visually and audibly, I think that both games outdo each other here in their own respect. Visually, I'd say that Squad 44 still has a way to go. Whilst the explosions are cool, it's nothing that Hell Let Loose can't offer. And I think graphically, Hell Let Loose certainly does those finer details much better, such as trees and hedges. Having said that, I will say that Squad 44 has gotten much better graphically since the new devs have taken over, and suspect that it will only get better with time. When it comes to the audio, on the other hand, I think that I have to give this one to Squad 44. The weapon sounds and explosions have honestly made me feel like I was in the middle of a war zone firsthand, and I even like the little reverb touch that they've put on whilst in proximity chat inside a building. Here's a few clips of the two games and some of the weapons in game side by side. Next up is the difficulty of each game. Neither of these games are easy. They're not supposed to be. Both games adopt realism in terms of bullet damage, weapon handling, and strategy. If you're someone that has come from arcade shooters such as COD, Battlefield, or anything else similar, then both of these games are going to do a good job in providing you a steep learning curve to get to grips with. Gone are the days of emptying an entire magazine into someone just to break their armor plates. One false move in both of these games and you'll be getting pretty familiar with the respawn screen. Whilst this can be quite frustrating when it's you that's on the receiving end, it's also extremely rewarding when you land a shot on an enemy player and they don't have the ability to 360 no-scope you. In most cases, one bullet to the chest, depending on which weapon you use, is enough to put your enemy down and keep them down.
Can we fit these through these buildings, Mogul?
So which game is harder? Personally, I find that Squad is more difficult in terms of being more hardcore in game mechanics, particularly when it comes to the tanking and armor, whilst Hell Let Loose can be more difficult in gunplay. I find the sensitivity really smooth on Squad 44, whereas with Hell Let Loose, I personally find it a bit slow and sluggish, even with my sensitivity levels turned up to the highest setting. Overall, I think that Squad 44 suits the more hardcore player, where Hell Let Loose suits players that don't necessarily want to play a super hardcore game, but are sick of the pink skins, ridiculous outfits, and the abundance of sweats that other games will have you playing. Okay, yeah, friendly. Some of the other gameplay mechanics that make Squad slightly more hardcore is the complexity behind establishing team-wide spawns and rally points. A squad lead can place a rally point, but must have members of his squad nearby to do so, unlike Hell Let Loose, where the squad leader can place an outpost despite if his squad are the other side of the map. When it comes to team-wide spawns, FOBs, or forward operating bases, are required to be built by dedicated logistics squads, which involve establishing a radio with a certain radius of other FOBs before building the spawn point. Compare this to a support player dropping 50 supplies and a squad leader building a garrison in Hell Let Loose. Another mechanic that Hell Let Loose tends to attract the more casual player towards is the ping system. Every member of the squad is able to place a danger ping to alert their squad members as to where the enemy are. And recently Hell Let Loose have now added the ability for squad members to mark attacking, defensive and observation pings. Compare this to Squad 44, where there is no ping system except for the squad leader. Callouts in enemy locations rely on good communication and accurate grid references, as well as distances being worked out manually with the measuring scale on the map. And lastly, one of the other differences between the two games is the stamina system. In Hell Let Loose, there is no punishment for sprinting and the player can permanently sprint, albeit not very fast. However, in Squad 44 there is a penalty for sprinting. Whilst it allows you to move faster, it does cost stamina, which affects your ADSing and weapon sway. You need to use your stamina wisely, as it takes forever to rebuild it back to a reasonable level without the use of your trusty canteen, which regenerates some spent stamina and allows you to run without depleting any more for the buffer period. I'm not really sure how I feel about this mechanic. Yes, it is incredibly annoying, but once again it does make you think twice about whether you really need to be sprinting or whether you should save it for when you really need to. Well, that wraps up some of the early differences that I've noticed whilst playing both of these games. I'm not going to comment in terms of the armor and tanking perspectives in this video, as whilst I've had a very limited experience in tanks on Hell Let Loose, I just simply don't have the experience in Squad 44 to compare the two. Maybe as I get more hours in the game and spend some time tanking with Hacksaw, we might do a separate video. So, in summary, which of these games is better? Well, if you're like me and you're sitting on the fence, then I think neither of these games are going to disappoint you. Whilst I would say that Squad 44 is slightly more hardcore, Hell Let Loose is a perfect game to start with if you're new to hardcore FPS games. The player base for Hell Let Loose is a lot larger and there are a lot more servers on the console and PC scene, whereas Squad 44 has a much lower play base but is gradually growing bigger and bigger day by day. In terms of value for money, right now on Steam, Squad 44 will cost you $42, whereas Hell Let Loose will cost you $75. So if after all that information you still can't decide, then go with the one that has the better sounding headshot audio. As always, thank you for watching the video. Hopefully this has helped you make a decision between the two games, or if you're like me, just get both and then you get the best of both worlds. If you have enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It is greatly appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.